All right, continuing with 11.2 and 11.3, there's a mixture of these trinomial factoring problems. I know there's a lot of different methods out on YouTube and out on the internet, but I'm going to be mainly showing you the trial and error method. Um, Kind of some people refer to it as the reverse of FOIL. So I know this trinomial stands a chance of factoring into two binomials. So what I do is I put down a template to get me started here, and then the first thing I do is I look for what would satisfy to get me this x squared up front. And I know that x times x would get me x squared. So that takes care of the f part of FOIL. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in two numbers here, which will multiply to give me negative 12. Now the problem with that is we have some different options. We have 1 and 12, we have 2 and 6, and then we have 3 and 4. Now I'm focusing in on 2 and 6 because when I think about the numbers 2 and 6, they're 4 apart, okay? And I see 4 in the middle. So it doesn't matter where I put the 2 and where I put the 6, I just happen to put it this way, okay? So I know I have to get a negative 12, okay? So one of these has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. Since this is positive in the middle, I want to have more positives, so I'm associating the positive with the 6 because 6 is a larger number than 2. And then I'm going to let this be a negative. So if we check this out with FOIL, excuse me, we'd get outside would be 6x, and inside would be negative 2x, which is 4x, which that is what we want to have on the inside. So this is the factored form of the trinomial. Okay. So looking at B here, we always want to make sure that we have the GCF factored out of the problem first, and we see all these are even. So I can pull a 2 out front of this problem, and then I'm left with x squared minus 2x minus 24, okay? Excuse me. So then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor this. And I'll have my x's. And then I'm going to think about 24, and I have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. I'm choosing 4 and 6 because I know they're 2 away from each other. Now look at this negative in the middle here. So I want to have more negatives. Well, 6 is larger than 4, so I'm going to put the negative with the 6 and the positive here. Now if you check this with FOIL, I would FOIL this first. You'll see that it matches this trinomial. And then if you distributed the 2, you would be back to your original trinomial. Okay? So that one you want to make sure and factor out a GCF first. Okay? Looking at C here, I want to give this a chance of working, so I make my two binomials. I put an x up front to produce the x squared from FOIL. Then I start to think about 10, and I know I have the options of 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. Now if I try either of those options, there's no way I'm going to produce a 17 in the middle. I can show you, just I'll pick the 1 and the 10. You know, if you check out O, you get 10x, and I is 1x, and that's 11x, which doesn't work. Okay? So what we find out here is that no matter what we try, okay, this trinomial, okay, is not factorable. Okay. Now, there might be a way to factor it with imaginary numbers, but right now we'll say it's not factorable. That's the choice they give us in the Hawk system. Okay. All right, taking a look at D here, and we'll whip through these last three a little quicker. I'm going to make my two binomials. I'm going to choose x and x to get me the x squared. And then for 32, the first thing that came to my mind was 4 times 8, which I'm lucky those two numbers are 4 apart, so I am going to use those. I'm going to put 4 and 8. And then I need more positives here, so I'm going to put the positive with the 8 and the negative with the 4. Do a quick check of O and I, 8x, negative 4x. Push those together, they make my middle term. So this is the factored form of the trinomial. Okay. E, x and x make the x squared. And then the first thing that came to my mind was 2 and 10, but those are 8 apart, and that doesn't quite get us what's in the middle there of a negative 1. And then I thought, well, 4 times 5 is 20. So I'm going to try 4 and 5. It's a negative in the middle, so I need more negatives. So I'm going to put a negative here, and I'm going to put a positive with the 4. If you check this out with FOIL, you get negative 5x outside, 4x inside, which makes negative x, and that's our middle term. So this is our factored form. All right. And then looking at f here, I'm going to scribble over the page number here so we don't get confused. I do have a GCF of 5x, so I'm going to pull this GCF of 5, actually it's 5xy out front, and 5 goes into 15 or 75 15 times, so I have 15x squared plus 4x and then minus 3. Okay. Now this is a little tougher factoring here. I have to really put some thought into these first terms in the binomial, because I could use 15 and 1, or I could use 5 and 3. I'm going to choose 5 and 3. And we're going to see if we can make this work. Okay. Now let's think about 3 here. The only choices for 3 are 1 times 3. Now one of them is going to have to be negative, though, to produce a negative 3. Now, if I put a 3 right here, just thinking about it, if I put a 3 right here, I'll draw it in lightly. The problem is when I multiply outside here, I'm going to get 15. And that's not really that close to 4. So I'm gonna abandon that. Also, from some practice, you'll know you wouldn't have a 3 common in this binomial because you would have a GCF in that binomial. So you might start to realize that that's not going to work out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 1 here. Okay, it's a little messy, but that's a 1. Okay, so when I put 1 there and 3 here, let's think this through. That would be 5x, and this would be 9x, okay? Well, I got to get a positive 4x in the middle. Well, if I make this a plus sign, that's going to produce a positive 9x, and if I make this a minus sign, that's going to make that a negative 5x, okay? And so my answer ends up being this right here, and you can check it all with FOIL and the distributive property. The signs are right. We thought through them. It's a little bit messy, but you can see the 2 binomials here. Okay, so these get a little tougher, and take your time with them. You might have to watch that video a couple times and then work it through yourself. But there's hundreds and thousands of videos on YouTube about how to factor. So take some practice. Thanks.